Johnny Gaudreau, a player who was known for his speed, skill, and vision. He was so quick, so dynamic, he was able to literally separate himself from the rest. You thought you had him covered, but blink once and he's already past you. A player who couldn't be hit, couldn't be contained, couldn't be stopped. Standing at 5'9", 165 pounds, he's Johnny Hockey. May he forever rest in peace. Number 13, Johnny Gaudreau.
Gaudreau out in front, Lindholm shoots, save Ottinger! The rebound to Gaudreau, he shoots, and scores! It's over! Johnny Gaudreau wins it in overtime!
John Michael Gaudreau was born on August 13, 1993 in Salem, New Jersey. Dad was a former athlete, and it was he who shaped the environment for young Johnny Gaudreau to thrive in. Barely knowing how to walk, he put on his skates for the first time, but he was only 2 at the time, so his balance was off. So as motivation, Dad would throw Skittles onto the ice for him to fetch. Frantically trying to reach for the next Skittle, Johnny made progress. Crawling turned to standing, and standing turned to gliding, and before long, he would improve and later master the art of skating, an aspect of his game that would later make him a game breaker. As Johnny recalled, his dad had built an ice hockey rink, so he, his brother Matthew, and his close friends would hit the ice whenever they wanted to. No structure, just joking around, playing hockey, spending time with his brother. It was the time of his life. And due to these childhood memories, Johnny would learn how to have fun on the ice, building his joy for the game as well as his creativity with the puck. As Johnny entered his teens, he continued to improve and had become a skilled player who possessed a natural ability to score goals. But then reality hit. While other kids grew bigger and bigger, a 14-year-old Johnny was starting to be left behind, and for a physical sport like hockey, surely this would be the end of the line for the aspiring player, right? No, not for Johnny Gaudreau. Even after being cut 2 years in a row for the regional team, he sought inspiration from other small players who had success in the NHL, players like Daniel Briere and Martin St. Louis. Coupled by a bit of convincing from Dad to lay it all on the line, Johnny would return the following year, make the team, perform well in a tournament, and get noticed by scouts from USA Hockey. Johnny Gaudreau would go on to play for the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the United States Hockey League, winning the championship that year. With 72 points in just 60 games, he would take home the Rookie of the Year award. Johnny Gaudreau had proven to himself that he can produce with the country's best under-18 players, but surely he won't be able to keep that up against older players, right? Many teams certainly thought so, but there was one team who had serious interest in Johnny, the Calgary Flames. Now it was undeniable that Johnny Gaudreau was considered elite by scouts at the time, but he had one knock on him that most players wouldn't be able to overcome: his size. If he was taller, perhaps he'd be a second-round pick. Even taller, perhaps a first-round pick, but he was just 5'9", and there's only a handful of smaller players in the NHL for a reason. The odds are always stacked against them, so Johnny Gaudreau was considered a wildcard, a low-floor, high-ceiling type of a prospect. The Flames would enter the 2011 NHL entry draft playing it safe, choosing to select larger, less dynamic players such as Sven Baertschi in the first round and Marcus Granlund in the second. And without a third-round pick in the draft, the Flames decided they couldn't wait any longer and would select Johnny Gaudreau with the 104th pick in the 4th round. It was reported that the Boston Bruins were going to pick him in the 4th round, and Johnny Gaudreau's emergence as a premier prospect over the following few years would leave not only the Bruins, but the rest of the league in deep regret. Gaudreau would sign on to play for Boston College in the NCAA, scoring 44 points in as many games as a freshman, as the team captured the national championship that year. And in that final game, with the team up 2-1 late in the third, he'd score this goal to put the game out of reach. Johnny Gaudreau was just getting warmed up. He would continue to improve as a player in his second year with Boston, and it was widely believed that he was set to join the Calgary Flames as he had nothing else to prove in college hockey. But Johnny decided to stay. Why? Because younger brother Matthew had just joined the team as a freshman, and Johnny wanted to play with him, perhaps for the final time before going up into the big leagues. Johnny Gaudreau would go on to tear up the league that year with 80 points in 40 games, tying a 21-year-old record set by Paul Kariya with a 31-game point streak. And just like Kariya 21 years prior, Johnny Gaudreau would take home the Hobey Baker Award given to the top player of the NCAA. Gaudreau was dominant in college, but many players fizzle out and his production won't translate to the NHL, right? He'd go on to score in his first NHL game on his first shot, quickly dispelling any ideas that he was not made for the big leagues. The era of Johnny Gaudreau had finally arrived. He was fast, oh boy was he fast, as he only needed a few quick strides to reach maximum velocity. He was slippery, evading and escaping from opponents who had him firmly in their crosshairs. He was a master at creating open ice, often going against the momentum, wrong-footing the D to give himself extra time and space. But perhaps most importantly, Johnny Gaudreau was just flat-out hard to read. His shot was accurate and deadly, ensuring the goalie couldn't cheat. But if they didn't, Johnny's pinpoint passing allowed him to thread that needle for that easy tap-in. Not to mention his ability and willingness to read and use his teammates meant we had a player who was just pure joy to watch. The Flames at the time had missed the playoffs the past 5 seasons, but Gaudreau's emergence in 2014 gave the team a much-needed scoring threat, as he would not only set a record as the youngest Flame to record a hat-trick that year, but he'd also finish second in team scoring as a rookie. The Flames would go on to make a return to the playoffs, but wait, his size surely isn't suitable for the rigors of playoff hockey, right? Wrong. Johnny Gaudreau would end up leading his team in playoff scoring, as the Flames would get eliminated in round 2 that year. Over the next few seasons, Gaudreau would continue to improve as the team was in the later stages of a rebuild. His numbers would continue to see an increase as he'd even reach 99 points in the 2018-2019 season, but Gaudreau wouldn't reach his absolute prime until his final season with the Flames, the 2021-2022 season. That first line of Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, and Matthew Tkachuk was firing on all cylinders, rendering goalies and defenses completely powerless throughout the league, and Gaudreau would record an eye-popping 40 goals and 75 assists for 115 points that year. And even though the Flames would get knocked out in the second round with Gaudreau on an expiring contract, there was nothing but optimism, and perhaps, just perhaps, they could sign their superstar to keep him in Calgary. And they were prepared to make him one of the highest paid players in the world. But Gaudreau was a family man, and it was his desire to be closer to family that ultimately steered him back to the United States. Aside from the Flames, the Devils and Islanders were also in advanced talks with Gaudreau's agent, but in a decision that sent shockwaves across the league, he'd go on to sign with the rebuilding Columbus Blue Jackets for $9.75 million per year for 7 years, leaving not just money on the table, but also any playoff aspirations. Even though the Blue Jackets finished last in the Eastern Conference in both of Gaudreau's 2 seasons with the team, he led them in scoring in both seasons. Add in the several exciting young players on the team, and it felt like the rebuild might be reaching its end, and it was only a matter of time before we could see his wizardry in the playoffs again. But on that evening, on August 29th, 2024, it was reported on Twitter and subsequently on Reddit that Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew were involved in a car accident, yet no official source had spoken out. So fans were left wondering, and there was still hope that the rumors were untrue. But the announcements on the very next day had confirmed everyone's worst fears. Johnny and Matthew were out biking and got struck by an impaired driver, they would not survive the crash. And to make matters worse, they were set to be groomsmen for their sister's wedding the next day. The following few days saw the whole nation unite in denouncing the driver responsible, while players around the league showed their respect for the player who was one of their own. Whether it's filling the stadium with flowers or even changing the jersey number to the number 13, Johnny Gaudreau's legacy will live on. Just as players of the past had inspired Johnny, he would go on to inspire other smaller players to never give up just because of their size. His sportsmanship was also admired by many, capturing the Lady Byng Trophy as the most gentlemanly player back in 2017. There are currently calls to rename the trophy to the Johnny Gaudreau Trophy, but regardless of what ends up happening with that, there's only one Johnny Hockey, and he will forever stay in the hearts of those who were lucky enough to have gotten the chance to watch him play. What are your thoughts on the whole situation? Would you like the Lady Byng Trophy to be renamed to the Johnny Gaudreau Trophy? Comment below. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoy videos like this, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.